So I've got a new axe to review. This one is ThrwClub brand. This came from Amazon. I was reimbursed for this review, but they didn't say what I had to say or what I had to do to try it out. So I'm just going to give my honest opinion. This is a throwing axe, but I don't do a lot of throwing, so I'm going to review it, you know, as a general purpose bushcraft camping axe. Stick to the things that I like to do. All right, so what kind of axe is this, and what are my first impressions? This is a bearded slip fit axe. The handle is 19 inches or 48 centimeters straight. The head is 700 grams or just over a pound and a half. And it comes with a little rubber blade protector for shipping. After it's sharpened and before I take it camping or bushcrafting or something, I would want to get or make a sheath or mask for it. My first impressions are good. So it's first thing I look for is the bit aligned, and it is. Yeah, good alignment. The hang is pretty tight, so if you tap the handle to seat it, it doesn't have a wiggle, and the bit is symmetrical. If you remove the handle, the eye is quite nice. So the eye is symmetrical. It's straight. So that's that's all good stuff. It's got a forge finish on the sides, and then at some point it was cleaned up. It was ground down on the top and the bottom to clean it up, and then it's got a medium grit polish, which is on the pole and on the blade, and that's actually quite refined for a budget axe. So that's quite nice. And yeah, so overall quality of the fit and finish looks good. It's got some sort of clear coat on it for shipping to keep it from rusting and stuff. I'm not going to try and take that off because I don't see a need to. It comes with a courtesy grind, and you generally do not expect axes to be shipped razor sharp. At least I don't. You've got a courtesy grind that'll split wood, but for other things I'm going to want to sharpen it, which is fine. I expect to do that. The other thing that I'm going to do myself is I'm probably going to scrape. So this is stained and varnished. I'm probably going to scrape that off the handle just because I like the feel of an oiled handle. The varnish is good for shipping. It keeps the handle clean so it doesn't get all grimy. But I prefer oiled bare wood. So that's what I'm going to do. One thing that's a good idea, so this slip fit is symmetrical. And so that means the handle can go on this way or that way. Typically, one way will be a little straighter and fit a little tighter than the other way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to gouge an arrow into the head, into the handle, either the top or the bottom, so it always goes on the same way, probably the top, because that's the way you look at it. That'll make sure that it's always fitting as well as it can. One thing I would change a little bit, I mean, but like, as I said, the fit is good. You know, I would like a little bit more meat sticking out the top so that I can adjust it if I have to. You know, if the wood shrinks, like it dries out and shrinks a bit, or I want to get a tighter fit at some point to like cinch the head up a little tighter or straighten it out a little bit. But for this example, this is quite good as it is. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the properties and advantages of this design of axe. So the first thing is that it's bearded. And so what that means, this is the beard here, and what that means is that it's got a narrow, like a short eye, but a wide bit. So this bit is, I'm just going to measure it, about 4 inches or 10 centimeters, a little over 10 centimeters. So that's a nice wide bit. That's good for, you could limb with it, for hewing, things like that. Yeah, it's quite handy. But because it's got this gap here, you can get your hand way up behind the bit, and that is good for leverage and control for like carving. Okay, so that's nice. This one has a fairly, like, it's beefy, so it's got fairly thick cheeks. It is a beefy axe. This would do, I think, quite well for like camp splitting tasks, fireside splitting. So that's nice. It's got a fairly heavy, large pole, so that would be good for things like driving tent pegs or for batoning. So it is to stick the axe head in and then hit the pole with a branch or a club or something like that to split the log, and that will work for that. I don't believe that the pole is hardened, so I would avoid metal on metal. But otherwise, yeah, a nice pole like this is quite handy for camping and bushcraft. The general handle length is a good general purpose length. So it's long enough that you can get a hold of it with two hands and swing to do heavier chopping, but it's not so long that it's too unwieldy to use one-handed. So I like that. One thing that's an advantage with a slip fit, so maybe I'll quick talk about the advantages of a slip fit. So one is that you can have more than one handle, right? So if you wanted to, if you're doing a lot of one thing, you might want to kind of get a handle that's particularly suited for one job. One thing that I might do is get a long handle, and I would just make one, because for a slip fit, it's making handles easier than for a wedge fit axe. Get a long handle, maybe 23, 24 inches, and then possibly shorten this one up, which of course would be easy. You just cut it off. So then you would have a short handle and a long handle. Another advantage of a slip fit is that, as I mentioned, it's easier to make. So if your handle breaks while you're in the field, you can replace it with material you have around more easily than you can with a wedge fit axe. It's actually quite difficult to replace the handle on a wedge fit axe if you don't have a lot of tools. Another advantage is that it can be easier to pack. So if you're packing, you can pack the handle and the head separately. So those are some advantages of this particular axe design. What I'm going to do, I'm going to sharpen this up, and then I'm going to take it outside and try it. We'll see how that holds an edge and things like that. I expect it will do well. When I looked up this brand, the steel is listed as 1065 steel, so that's a high carbon steel. And so I expect that will be good. And the handle, I like the handle. The handle is some hardwood that's, it's not hickory or ash. I'm not sure what it is, but I've seen this kind of wood before. It's distinctive. It's got a lot of grain pattern. It's got a prominent medullary rays. These flecks in it are quite distinctive. And so I think the handle's pretty good. I'm satisfied with that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this out, and that's what I'm going to do as soon as I finish setting it up.
Another benefit of slip fits that I forgot to mention is that you can pull the head off, makes it easier to sharpen because it's easier to do both sides evenly.
So I'm filing a bevel on this. I'm not going to go over how to do that. I've gone over it before, and other people have videos on this, so I won't repeat myself, but what I'm going to do is put a flat grind. I'm going to go for about 20 degrees, and then I'm going to put a second bevel, a smaller one, that's a little more obtuse for durability. I'm going to do most of the sharpening, get it mostly done with a file, and then finish it off with a stone. All right, so I've sharpened it up. It's been through files, stone, and a strop. I think if anyone is getting an axe for the first time and wondering what to get to sharpen it, I would say a file is the most important. And then you can worry about the other stuff after, but a file will get you to an axe that works. All right, so that's 25 degrees primary bevel, and then I've got a slightly more obtuse micro bevel. I don't know if you can see it on there. This is a closer up view of the edge to document the way it looks like now before I start chopping. I think I did a pretty good job sharpening it up. There is a little nick on it there at the heel. That happened. That's some damage from shipping. I didn't file it all the way out because it's not going to be that big of a difference. And you save time and you save edge if you don't worry about every single little nick like that. It's sharp. Okay. All right. So this is good to go. And I'm going to do a little bit of chopping with it and see how it holds up.
To test this axe out, I'm going to take it out in the woods and prepare a campfire, gather firewood, and see how the axe does doing all those tasks that are involved in that.
All right, so here's a dry eastern white cedar, which is great wood for kindling and things like that. Dead wood that's been standing is drier than any wood that's been laying on the ground. So I think this will be good. Right, so this little snag is on the ground. Knock a couple of the branches off. Sometimes softwood has very hard knots. So an old trick is to use the back of the axe to save the edge, to knock off branches. Which is easy to do, as easy as using the edge, and having a nice pull on the axe makes it even easier. Now there's easier ways to get wood for a little fire, but because this is an axe testing video, I'm going to buck up a couple sections and use that. It's important to make sure that you're safe when you're doing this. This isn't an axe safety video, but there are some, so I would recommend getting some safety tips from people that are experienced with axes before you hurt yourself. All right, got an anvil log. These out of the way. Once again, pole comes in handy. So this is a hemlock, and the knots on hemlock are extremely hard, and are specifically, if you read old books about it, are known for breaking axes. So yeah, I'm using the pole for that. All right, so you can split this like this. If you're careful, it's fine, but a safer way, and oftentimes easier way, when you're using, a small axe on axe cut piece of wood that you can't stand on its end, is to basically baton it. Like that. Existing crack. Okay, let's shave off a bit of fine tinder, or fine kindling. I can keep it on the log. All right, the fire's going. I think as a test of this ThrwClub bearded slip fit axe, it went quite well as a bushcrafting axe. As a throwing axe, that's what it's meant for, but as a starter bushcrafting axe, it's pretty good. It does all the jobs you would want. It did them well. The fit and finish are good. So I'm quite happy with it. When I get back, I'll double check the bit, see how it fared, but so far it seems to be okay. Yeah, nice axe, nice day. It's good to be outside. All right, here I am back at my test cutting piece of paper. Looking at the edge, it's held up pretty well, acceptably. There is some edge damage. It's probably not sharp enough to cut paper well anymore. Well, yeah, it still cuts paper. It's got the lower part of the blade. Yeah, see, tearing. The lower part of the blade has some damage to it. So it's not perfect, but you would expect a little bit. In general, for a throwing axe, I'm not surprised. If I was designing a throwing axe, I would not make it really, really hard because there's a trade-off between hardness and toughness. And so I would definitely lean more on the side of toughness and ease of sharpening for a throwing axe. And if for a bushcrafting axe, that's all right. I did find this quite easy to put an edge on, so that's good. All right, the only serious issue I have with this axe is that there's just not quite enough meat at the top of the handle. So one thing that can be an issue with slip bits is if it wiggles a bit, the head isn't quite tight. And so in order to fix that, you've got to tighten it up. In my case, this fits quite well, so I just have to tap it. But in a lot of cases, or especially if the alignment's not quite how you want, you've got to adjust it and help the head to really cinch up by removing high spots on the handle where you can see it's rubbing the inside of the eye. And that will make sure it's tight all the way around, and that will fix any wobble. In my case, I just have to tap it, but you want to make sure it's tight. And the problem is that when I do that, I have run out of room. So mine, this example worked great. I had no problems, but I could foresee that there might be issues because there's not really any margin for adjustments of the fit. But other than that one issue, this axe worked well for me. The fit and finish was good. The design worked. I think the weight and the handle length are a great place to start for a bushcrafting axe. And I think that the design with the slip fit handle, with the steel that can be filed, it's easy to maintain. It's easy to adjust and customize if you want. So of course, easy to make your own handles for these, change the length of them, whatever you want. So I think that's good. And I think that the quality of the finishing is good. And overall, yeah, I'm happy to recommend this for anyone looking to start out with bushcrafting, camping, and looking for an axe that they can get started with.